Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being in this session. Well, I don't have a story to tell you. I mean, I was not driving for a long time before coming. I was trying to know why our Secretary General, Ganoun Diop, asked 3 of the experts to talk about the same topic. That's the point. We are 3 experts talking on the same topic, one after the other. And the point is that we know each other very well. That means that I am not a lawyer. That means that at least I have a different point of view. And they are 2 lawyers. And then Ganoun made me a very tricky proposal. You can talk about the future of religious freedom. And then I say, well, shall I give a title, Rethinking Religious Freedom in the 21st Century, Understandings and Challenges? That is what I propose in only 40 minutes I have. Now I start with that proposal he asked me. Thank you, first of all, Secretary General, coordinators and recording secretaries, and the whole IRLA team for so impressive program, for so amazing range of topics and approaches, and for the time and efforts devoted to freedom of religion in the task of intertwining every detail of the program. Following the 2 relevant presentations, I will confine myself to a few of the most salient issues concerning religious freedom in the 21st century. We are all aware of the gradual and often difficult progress of the concept of religious freedom and how it traced its development in various religious and political settings to the point where most of the nations in the world and many of the world's religions have acknowledged it as a fundamental right. Yet, the consensus embodied in various formal documents has not led to agreement on the meaning and foundation of religious freedom, nor on its relation to other fundamental rights. Rooted in different legacies and cultural traditions, religious liberty remains a difficult concept, both philosophically and practically, because there are so many different understandings of religion and religious freedom. That is why I put on the screen the sentence you can all read. There is a great and urgent need for a deeper understanding of religion and belief in modern society, and for the key issues to be reviewed holistically, not each in its own. If deeper understanding is not developed amongst believers, confessions, and policymakers, and in the public arena more generally, there are a danger that policies and decisions will be insensitive and inadequate, and that the public good will be severe damage. Let us have a look to think of religious freedom in a world of diversity. That is now the target. There is a need for both increased religious and belief knowledge to enable an informed and critical understanding of religious freedom. The increase in Christianophobia, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia, and a general negative stereotyping of religiosity are all serious phenomena that require urgent action, and we are to live with our differences in peaceful coexistence. There are many consequences of this, but the most pressing is that it fuels conflict and antagonism and hinders cooperative efforts in all areas of human experience. Let me mention some misunderstandings concerning religion and belief. No tradition is monolithic that says on top of the slide. No tradition is monolithic. As a matter of fact, there are relevant differences within each religious tradition, for no tradition is monolithic, none is unchanging, and none exists independently of a specific cultural, historical, and political context and circumstances. If we think of Christianity, internal differences include Roman Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, Evangelicals, and so on. Cutting across fundamental distinctions, there are frequently tensions between tradition and reform, and between the perspectives and experiences of women and men. Different approaches to the interpretation of sacred text, for example, the extent to which text can and should be understood entirely, literally. Different views of personal morality and political priorities, and difference between those who are observant and those who are not. Let's go into the second. Religion is not only a matter of personal deliberation, choice, and commitment. It can be given and unchosen. Over the years, the concept of ethno-religious identity is of increasing importance throughout the world. For many, it's about belonging and community, a matter of ethnic or familiar solidarity, rather than theological creed. Religious identity can therefore be bound up with national or ethnic identity and is sometimes given rather than chosen. Conflicts can be not only racialized, but only religionized, as people caught up in them seek to sharpen differences between us and them and to rally support for themselves. In other words, the religious rhetoric and symbolism associated with such conflicts may have more to do with issues of individual and group identity than with theological differences. And a third point, religious communities cannot expect that freedom of religion can prosper for the message of one religion, of one community. We need to understand that the future of the freedom of religion will survive and prosper as a common good for all religions. However, freedom of religion does not mean that all religions in one and the same country have the same space to unfold in any context. History and tradition may play a role regarding differentiation, but the past is not the only lawmaker for the future practice of the freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is vital. It's a vital right of every new generation. Let's now move forward to challenges and concerns. There are three pillars I am going to talk about. To appreciate how religious freedom might be advanced, it is important to examine global trends that are challenging international norms on religious rights. In a number of ways, the normative consensus embodied in the Universal Declaration is weakening at the very time that it should be growing. This flows from a variety of converging forces, from militant secularism to the emergence of competing rights and equality norms that minimize legal protection of religious freedom, from authoritarian regimes to new trends in elite opinion concerning religion. In contrast to claims that religious liberty is a Western construct, religious freedom is recognized in international law as universal human rights and firmly embedded as a fundamental freedom in United Nations declarations, international treaties, customary law, and national constitution. More specifically, the Universal Declaration hints at how certain human traits explicitly justify religious freedom as inherent. This landmark declaration anchors universal rights in the inherent dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal and unalienable rights of all members of the human family. Don't forget that, who are endowed with reason and conscience. Religious freedom is not merely a desirable thing granted by the state, it is a universal inherent right and aspiration. Juridical trends, let's move into the next point, in Western countries reveal a spreading distrust towards religion, religious institutions, and their role in public life. In other words, in Western countries, threats for freedom of religion often derive as side effects of appassionate attitudes toward individual rights. I refer to new rights. The dignitarian tradition of human rights, based on an integral understanding of the human person, is now overtaken by new rights. Even in those Western countries where it used to be deeply rooted, both in social life and in their constitutional frameworks. Each generation of rights has its own hallmark, and the peculiarities of this last one are the right to privacy and the non-discrimination principle. Privacy rights put pressure on contraception and abortion in the 60s and 70s. Nowadays, they are blooming on the soil of bioethical disputes regarding the age of life, the right to have a child, the right not to be born, and the right to die, the right to receive and the right to refuse medical treatment. To sum up, most of the contemporary controversial issues involving moral disputes are placed in the domain of privacy and are shaped in terms of individual rights. Privacy always goes hand in hand with non-discrimination. And in the international language of human rights, both are the twin cornerstones of contemporary human rights practice. We cannot forget that non-discrimination originates in the idea of equality, that one coming from the Latin classics, which foster uniformity rather than differentiation. Now, I am going to go into new trends in elite's opinion. New trends in elite opinion are saying that without religion in the public space, social life is impoverished. Contrary to one of the leading political theorists' position, William Galston's philosophy, denying that liberalism draws essential content and depth from religion and classical philosophy, some prominent non-believers have expressed concerns about the political cost of neglecting a common cultural inheritance in which religion and liberty are intertwined. An inheritance that includes the classical civilizations of Greece and Rome, the Hebrew scriptures, and the apostolic writings, the explosive energies of Renaissance and the Enlightenment, and the concept of human rights. The West cannot abandon its religious heritage without endangering the great social and political advances that are grounded in that heritage. No model of religious freedom suits all countries. This is probably the last part of my intervention. Let me introduce a common misunderstanding about religious freedom. There is no one-size-fits-all model of religious freedom. I mean, there cannot be one model of religious freedom that suits all countries. Nor can one country's approach to religious liberty serve as a model for another if by model one means something that can simply be copied and transplanted. Each nation's system is the product of its own distinctive history and circumstances. And the last point, number 4, just to finish, is responsibility. You have on the screen states, religious confessions, and believers' responsibility. It is a state's responsibility to develop a legal framework on the basis that everyone, believers or non-believers, are committed to respecting and not harassing or persecuting others, and simultaneously to minimize the risk of religious rights violations. But, on the other hand, it is an urgent demand that Christian churches become strong advocates for safeguarding religious freedom, not only in its individual sense, but above all in its corporate sense. No religious community should plead for its own religious liberty without active respect and reverence for the faith and basic rights of others. Because the case for religious freedom is so compelling for both believers and good societies, churches and communities should find resources within their own traditions to generate knowledge, diffuse ideas, and fortify advocacy. Such initiatives of research, diffusion, and advocacy would aim to influence practices, laws, attitudes, and high-level intellectual discourse conducive to greater religious liberty and tolerance. Thank you for your patience.